Hi guys, it's Mr. Lewis here. I'm coming from my house, so you can see a little bit of my house here in the background, and I'm doing this from my iPad, which the camera is like right here, but it's easier if I look here, like at the camera. So my eyes might be like looking this way, but you guys are here. But nevertheless, I want to share a little bit with you guys on this thing called quests. And I got that from this book here. It's a little bit dense and it might be something that you guys understand, you might not. So I wanted to share something with it that you guys could maybe do while you guys are at home right now or whatever. And it's about quests. And so there's a couple things that I'll have on Google Classroom to go along with this. But the first thing is this thing on quests, and it's coming straight from here. I'll put the chapter up, and I'll put kind of a document to go along with it. But so the thing about quests, and the thing that I thought that was really cool that I want to share with you guys about this is how everything can be seen as a quest. And so the thing that I thought that was really cool about this, and you'll see, and if you read the chapter from this book, is that it takes this instance or this occurrence from basically everyday life, and he uses a character. He uses Kip and Tony. Kip is the main character, and so what he's saying, he's given this kind of situation where Kip is asked to go get bread for his mom, and then he stops by on a couple different ways on this trip. So he runs into this girl that he really likes, and she's kind of hanging out with this guy that doesn't really like Kip, and that's Tony in this situation. And so Kip knows that he doesn't like him at all, and so he tries to kind of go off the path so he doesn't have to see Kip, because Kip's going to be making fun of him for various different reasons just because he's in front of the girl that Kip likes and he had asked her out. And then he stops by and he sees these dogs too, and he's not really a dog person, and so he tries to kind of go around the dogs and everything. Looking here too a little bit on that, so there's a Marine recruiter too, and that he decides to sign up for the Marines, and it's because it's kind of this like vision that he's had for himself. And so, but the really important thing that I thought was really cool that you guys might enjoy from this is kind of this idea of how everything is a quest, and we can see this in our lives where this instance of going to the bread store for our parents is kind of something that maybe all of us kind of do in some way or the other, or we kind of see people and we kind of ignore them in those kinds of ways because we don't want to get involved with them, and it's very down to earth. But in here too, he kind of says that, well, this quest is no different from things like, and these are things that you probably never read or heard of, but like Sir Gawain and the Green Knights and something like that, that is really kind of similar, I would say, is probably Monty Python and the Holy Grail, which is kind of this quest of these knights, and they're around the round table, and they have this big thing that they're trying to see this green knight, or trying to capture this green knight, or whatever, what was happening. So he's saying that literature is very much kind of this mimicking things that we see in everyday life or do in everyday life that we just don't realize. And so that's something like a quest where we're going to get bread for our parents or whatever, and it mimics kind of these stories that we read every day. And so when we say things about like, well, we gotta read The Giver, I'll say, for instance, because we read that. Oh, why do we have to read The Giver? There's nothing about that mimics us. Or why do I have to read Shakespeare? Which there's nothing about Shakespeare that I like at all, or it has no relevance to me whatsoever. Well, some of these things are kind of relevant because things that we see every day, we just don't realize it. And so something like that, where a quest of someone who is just going to get bread for his parents, and how it relates to some of these stories like Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, or it relates to, he has this other one, The Crying of the Lot, and if you read it, you'll be able to see how it kind of connects in the same ways. But it's just kind of something that you can see how these quests or these stories that we read that are literature kind of impact us in everyday life, or kind of mimic our everyday life. And so the other thing that I want to share too quickly was this thing about what creates a quest. And the real reason why we go on quests, he says, is to gain self-knowledge. And so I think that's really important. Something that I think that would be cool for you guys to take away from too is because that these quests, they have this thing that, all right, I'm going to go and get bread. But then it ends up being more about, well, I signed up for the army because this is like this thing, this idea I've always had in my head growing up, and that's kind of the story of Kip. But we see that too in a lot of quests, and so I'll use the example of Frozen. And we all know, I hope we all know Frozen, where the whole thing is about Coronation Day. And Elsa and Anna, Anna wants to kind of have this Coronation Day, and she needs her sister, and so the whole thing is about Coronation Day and getting married and kind of having that kind of life, being king and queen and those kinds of things. And it turns into this quest about trying to figure out who they are as sisters and why they love each other. And it goes off on this huge different path. They end up going, Anna kind of goes into the woods and kind of creates this castle for herself. And that it goes off on this whole thing about, instead of it being about this Coronation Day, it ends up being about this story about two sisters who love each other, and how can they recognize that love and how can they use that to better each other. And so that's just something that I thought you guys would find interesting, or something that you would kind of appreciate during this time. So I'll put a couple things up on the Google Classroom as well, just so you guys can practice this a little bit. I think it'll be pretty fun. I think this is kind of cool. I'll put a PDF on this chapter so you can read the chapter from this book again. It's a little bit dense, so that's why I kind of want to read a couple things to you, or kind of explain a couple of things to you too. But awesome.